un arquitecto nacido en Australia que opera en los espacios entre el diseño, la ficción y el futuro. Es fundador del think tank Tomorrow's Thoughts Today, cuyo trabajo explora las posibilidades de los urbanismos fantásticos, especulativos e imaginarios. Su trabajo ha sido difundido en medios de comunicación tradicionales y arquitectónicos, incluyendo la BBC, NBC, Wired, The Guardian, Time Magazine, In Dazed and Confused, y su trabajo ha sido recopilado por instituciones como el Metropolitan Museum of Art y el Victoria and Albert Museum. Ha sido profesor en la Architectural Association y en la Universidad de Princeton. Actualmente dirige un máster en ficción y entretenimiento en SciArc. Agradecemos el apoyo de SciArc. Démosle la bienvenida a MEXTRÓPOLI 2019.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Apologies for doing this in English. I'm originally Australian, which means I can barely speak English, so never mind a second language, so please bear with me. I tell stories and I make films, so I'm going to try and spare you another fucking architect's PowerPoint presentation. We're going to play some films today, and we're going to tell some stories about an imaginary future city that in many ways is already here. So I guess the best way to describe the work that I do is that I'm a speculative architect, which means that in many ways I don't design buildings, but instead I make films and I tell stories about the architectural, urban, and cultural implications of new technologies. So we hope that by understanding the technologies and all the futures that they're generating, that we may become more critical consumers and producers of our own futures. So I'm interested in this idea that our perception of the world is largely shaped by the mediums of fiction and entertainment. These extraordinary shared languages are the vehicles through which we exchange ideas and engage with our built environment. So it's impossible to underestimate the importance of media in the production of our culture. So I also run SciArc's Masters in Fiction and Entertainment, and it's a one-year program, and students work with world-renowned professionals from the worlds of film, animation, games, and documentary making to build new forms of architectural practice. And given the critical role contemporary media plays in our lives, I think it's urgent to widen the scope of the architectural practice beyond buildings alone. I'm interested in the idea that why shouldn't architects design the next Hollywood blockbuster, or virtual reality environment, or viral video, or a political campaign? So in fiction and entertainment, we engage the techniques of popular culture to imagine and visualize alternative and speculative worlds. So we're deeply embedded in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles, and this program is a place to start telling new kinds of stories about the emerging conditions of the 21st century. So with our students, we tell stories of the alternative futures of our technologies. So, as Elon Musk launches his mission to Mars and Trump announces the formation of Space Force, politics and fiction are merging together. So this film by one of our students, To Be Great, is a new propaganda film for the United Republic. The government is presenting the design and animation of a speculative nation-building mission to send astronauts to Saturn and Titan. It's a critique of Musk and his nation-building posturing. Another student has developed Earth Mother, Sky Father, a live-action music video that takes place in the year 2030, when the Congo is no longer shipping unrefined rare earth minerals out to sea, but it's keeping its wealth onshore and in the ground. And the processes and infrastructure of mining have been revalued and ritualized as an important aspect of local culture. This is Africa's future through dance. This is a music film and a ceremony for the gods of rare earth. And Valentine's in Things City imagines the future of post-human spaces like Google's data centers and Amazon warehouses. It uses the same artificial intelligence codes that organize logistics infrastructure to create a fictional Amazon fulfillment center at the scale of the city through procedurally generated software systems. And through the eyes of the city's machines, we watch as a young girl enters Things City on Valentine's Day, searching for her lost package. And in a near future Los Angeles, everyone sees the city through their own set of augmented reality contact lenses. So through this digital overlay, it's possible for everyone to curate their own experience of our world. And here we watch as a young Persian refugee arrives at the border to the city and is given a mandatory set of government-issued cultural adjustment augmented reality lenses. And she's shut out from other people's realities, and slowly she descends into a new form of digital alienation, a reimagining of the contemporary state of immigration in the United States. And finally, Last Choice is a hybrid documentary exploring hikikomori, which is a condition of social withdrawal prevalent among young men in Japan. It's set during the deadly earthquake and tsunami of 2011, and the film follows a hikikomori who, for 3 years, has locked himself in his room playing video games, and now faces the dilemma of whether to leave or stay, which is ultimately also the choice between living or dying. And these are just some of our recent students' stories on technology. But what I want to do with my time this afternoon is to tell you a series of my own stories, some stories that I've included in my new book on machine landscapes, a series of myths from the post-human world of augmented and automated technologies. I want to take everyone in this room today on a tour through a collection of sites, documented moments and vignettes of a new kind of city, a city of what we could call the post-Anthropocene world, a city that for tonight we're going to call City Everywhere. So in the landscapes of this city everywhere, there is no city or country, there is no center or periphery, there's just a continuous city of technology that's stretched across the entirety of the planet. I want to tell you a selection of tales from the dark side of technology. I want to take us through an atlas of geographies and gadgets and objects that might form a portrait of this emerging city. Think of it as a kind of city symphony stitched together from documentary footage of real sites that we've captured with the nomadic studio that I run called Unknown Fields, based in London with another architect, Kate Davies, and the objects we create in order to understand and disseminate these conditions, collaged together with short fragments of speculative film projects that I develop out of these conditions in my own urban futures practice in Los Angeles. I want to collage together the present and the future as we drift back and forth between the two. So to see this city everywhere, I want everyone in this room to jump into the back seat of this driverless taxi as we cruise through an imaginary new city, and we head out on safari. And the city operating system is riding shotgun. And we're going to see the city through the eyes of the machines that run it. This effervescent point cloud, for example, is how driverless cars see the world, through the laser lens of our LiDAR scanners. And we're going to travel through an atlas of sites from the edges of the city to see where all our contemporary technologies begin their lives. And then we're going to go deeper into the city core to see ourselves and the strange creatures that we're all becoming. So let's get rolling, because here we are in our driverless taxi, and the smart city is sitting beside us, and it smells of hard drives and fiber optics and Red Bull soda. And the city has invited us on this road trip across its technological skin to visit the sites and structures made for and by its machines, sites of this planetary scaled city where nothing has escaped, and the electric motor rumbles on quietly. And to start us off, the city takes us back to the beginning of the beginning, where seconds from zero, 13.8 billion years ago, the creation story of lithium, a fundamental component in all our technologies, begins its life. And here we drive along the azure shores of the city's energy pools, through Chile and Bolivia, through a land that's no longer of an indigenous population, but it's of evaporation ponds of the world's largest lithium mines. And this is the landscape behind the scenes of all of the batteries that power our technology. And 70% of the world's lithium is here. And as we drive on a stage in California, Elon Musk, the tech evangelist and entrepreneur, proclaims his vision for a green energy future, a world where everything will be solar in 20 years. But like most Silicon Valley preachers, he's presenting to us a seductive future, a hopeful future, but at the same time, it's a decidedly uncomplicated one. Because in reality, Elon Musk must literally buy Bolivia and evolve it as the new Dubai. Because if the future is electric, if the future is Elon Musk and his Tesla-fueled dreams, and the future is buried here beneath the salt flats of Bolivia. And as we drive, we see from a clearing in the point cloud mist the cavernous landscapes of our ephemeral technologies. It's in these massive mining excavations scattered on the edge of the world that our new robot reality begins and ends its life. So we each have a bit of the gold or aluminium from the sites of these landscapes in the smart technologies in our pockets, charged and quietly vibrating. And the digital models of these landscapes are now linked live to the fluctuations of metal prices on the stock market. And as explosive diggers and drills have replaced the slow erosion of rivers and earthquakes, we're scoring our economy into the archaeological record. And these landscapes become a chronicle of the digital permutations that drive the modern world. And in the landscape, we see vehicles just like the one that we're all traveling through together, that no longer have drivers, but that are just systems. And mining trucks rumble up mountains. And now we drive deeper into the dust and we see the rhythms of the human conveyor belts of Madagascar. These digging machines excavate the majority of the world's gemstones. And in these illegal mines, it's cheaper to pay 20 men in rice than it is to maintain and fuel a mechanical conveyor belt. A hidden black market supply chain connects two choreographies, one in these lawless mine sites and the other in the jewelry stores, hip-hop music videos, and celebrity red carpets across the ocean in the City Everywhere center. So for the jewelry of City Everywhere, we've used the amount of rice the human conveyor belt consumes in a day to manufacture a single synthetic gemstone. The rice is subjected to extreme heat and pressure in a lab to produce a diamond that's then set into a gold hip-hop tooth, a speculative object that embodies the systems through which these two worlds are intimately and profoundly connected. And close by, our driverless taxi rolls up to the shores of the radioactive lake in Inner Mongolia that sits beside the world's largest rare earth mineral refinery. And we take a selfie on our phones, and we see our reflection in its mirrored screen, because the material to polish its glass and run its software produces this very lake. And collapsed together in a single luminous surface, we see ourselves and this black earth. And from this black sludge, we've made a series of vases for City Everywhere, of some vases for the machines to thank them for showing us around. It's a set of vases made from the amount of radioactive waste produced in the production of 3 objects: an iPhone, a MacBook, and a Tesla electric car battery. It's a new material aesthetic for the technologies born of the earth. And in these same areas of the city, we now pick at a loose thread of the garment that we're wearing, and we unravel it across continents, from wardrobe to warehouse, from factory to field, in search of the landscapes behind our runway dreams and street blue jeans. Because before we wear them, our clothes make journeys of tens of thousands of miles in their process of production, making textiles the most globalized industry on earth. And here on our tour through City Everywhere, we now meet the last generation of master weavers, a group whose skills will now die with them. The apprentices they will now train now man the rumbling mechanized looms of global fashion, raw cotton plugging their ears, deaf to the din of the world around them. So as we span from fashion victim to victims of fashion for the cloth of City Everywhere, we weave a collaborative textile with the last gold thread maker and one of the last true master weavers in Varanasi. An audio from a series of interviews with these endangered craftspeople, and the sound of their looms has been translated into a black and white binary pattern and then woven into the cloth. And the textile is becoming a strange kind of archive, embedded with the skills and stories of a dying craft and woven with the same hands it is trying to remember. And to make this the textile, we follow container ships all the way to their death. They bring fast fashion to our shores, but after their 25-year lifespan, they return to India and Bangladesh to be broken up and salvaged in the shipbreaking yards. And we collected fragments of this raw steel from the Bangladeshi shores, cut from the rusting carcasses of dead ships to form the core of the gold thread. So it's a textile archive born from the skeletons of the industry that brought it into being. And now we covered a young Indian textile worker with this cloth as she walks slowly on a sacred procession from her home village amongst the cotton fields to the huge mills and factories of the vast textile industry supply chain where she works. And her journey ends as she's completely cocooned, as she's standing on the edge, watching the huge container ships amongst the megaports that will soon export her and everything we wear all the way to the west. So City Everywhere cannot be described as a single point on a map. Our technologies cast shadows that stretch across the earth. And now on our tour, we pack up all the materials produced in these sites we've been visiting and we send them off in ships around the world. This is the computer-controlled container fleet of the mega shipping industry that now navigates autonomously based on GPS satellites. And the ship captain and the portside crane operator have all been made obsolete, their bodies repurposed as a component in the landscape-scaled robot that stacks the containers ready for transport, bringing our goods all the way home. And the ship now pulls up to the shores of the Amazon Fulfillment Center, where stretching out before us are its endless shelves and storage bins. This is where we keep, well, everything, says the city operating system. So the Amazon bookshelves are stacked based on complex sorting algorithms, and they're engineered around sales frequencies and buying patterns. And here we watch as the Amazon robots rush through the stacks, navigating from book to book, filling orders by following the most efficient route generated for them by their navigational programming. And this is the library of City Everywhere, that's not organized around the Dewey Decimal System, but by buying habits and aggregated data sets. This is a library that isn't organized for us. It's a space organized by algo logics and inhabited by bodies repurposed as machines. And now on our tour, we follow the Amazon Prime drone that's zipping about our heads. It drops packages down in an Amazon hailstorm. And drifting above this sea of neon haze, the drones have become as ubiquitous as pigeons. And we customize our drones like we once did our phones. And they follow us around, always with a smile and 16mm propeller blades. And the traffic lights flock at rush hour. And the air is filled with the digital confetti of our every desire. And the rumble of drone propellers becomes a new natural soundscape to the city of a new generation. All the dogs in the city are walked by drones now, the city says. Think of the time saving. And they deliver our pizzas. Hot dogs, stuffed crusts is how we like them in City Everywhere. And now we watch as a network of drones monitor the wayward youth of a London council estate. And we watch as a young girl has hacked and decorated her own drone. And she uses it to pass notes to her boyfriend trapped in the tower opposite. And like kids in an old-fashioned classroom, they scribble graffiti messages on the drone and they send it back and forth between the towers. So in this near-future city, drones form both agents of state surveillance, but also become co-opted as the aerial vehicles through which two teenagers might fall in love. And another drone, armed just with a dildo, disrupts a Russian parliamentary session. And another zips overhead, armed with a different kind of cylindrical device, en route to attack a village in a country half a world away. And another drone rolls across the floor and sucks up the hair of a sleeping owner's head.
A woman got a rude awakening when she left her robot vacuum to do the cleaning while she took a nap. The vacuum cleaner reportedly mistook the woman for dust, locked onto her hair and tried to suck it up. The vacuum suction was far from gentle, and wrenched the woman from her slumber. The woman's hair then became entangled in the cleaning device. The woman, who has not been named, was unable to free herself and called the fire department with a desperate rescue plea.
So throughout history, the world has always stood quiet. And now we're making a world of living objects that listen and watch and talks back. And Heinz was forced to apologize after a QR code on a ketchup bottle linked to a hardcore porn site. A guy scanned the label to read about the latest recipe promotion, but was instead directed to German porn site Fundorado. And now as we leave these talking machines behind, we head into the beating, purring, and whirring heart of the city. And we drive along the aisles of Facebook machines, past all of our messages, photos, inane chatter, hopes, dreams, desires, and darkest fears. And the electric car motor has given way to the whir of cooling fans. And we're not seeing a grand cathedral or a great library, but at a time when our collective history is digital, this is our generation's cultural legacy. Perhaps we will soon write soliloquies for the server aisles, like we once did for rolling hills. And couples might steam up car windows parked in the artificial moonlight of vast data complexes. And we picnic under the sodium glow of a row of artificial suns. And hidden within the server stacks, the city takes us to visit the renderlands and the data farms, and we drive through the Indian quarter of the city. So in design studios in the West, architects and directors sketch out their designs and dreams for imaginary cities. But in India, across the other side of the planet, a massive anonymous workforce turns these wireframe worlds into the high-fidelity digital architectures of developer renderings, video games, and Hollywood blockbusters. And the city introduces us to Prakash, a render farm worker, who makes and shapes the digital worlds that we all inhabit. And Prakash has fallen in love with the digital model of a beautiful Hollywood actress after spending his 14 hours a day endlessly rotoscoping, rendering, and compositing her into blockbuster films. And by night, when the fluorescents are switched off and everyone else has gone home, he straps on his VR goggles and they walk hand in hand through the streets of a city that he's collaged together for them from scavenged VFX movie models and the leftover 3D objects from when an architecture competition is lost. And the digital ephemera of popular culture fills our physical spaces, and we all exist in a utopia that exists in the thickness of the screen. We all inhabit a virtual city that stretches from Los Angeles to Bangalore, a world of unbuilt competition entries, drowned cityscapes, alien invasions, digitally simulated actors, and our outsourced, pixel-projected dreams. And we keep on driving. And in many ways, what happens to the physical world that's left behind when everything disappears into the thickness of the screen or the lens of Oculus or HTC Vive? In many ways, modern film studios are an analogy for the urban spaces of the city, where we see a new kind of architecture that's covered in a new type of ornament that's based on calibration crosshairs and targets. We see an architecture that's stripped back to become the scaffolds and infrastructure for a digitally constructed world. We see an architecture that's lying in wait, ready for the premiere of 1 million animated movies that will illuminate its surface with color and detail. And we see a green screen studio world where everything has become just a screen. And we jump back in our taxi and we follow the photons, a trail of pixel breadcrumbs, and we hear a dull roar fill the cabin as we drive. I wind down a window and in the distance, we can hear an audience screaming and going crazy. Have you ever been to a Hatsune Miku concert, the OS says? She's the pop star of our generation. She's a pop star for a city everywhere. So Hatsune is a 3D projection with a larger fan base than most living musicians. And the crowd waves their glow sticks for a digital ghost of the city because she's the first animated pop star. And just like the Kardashians or the Hiltons or the vloggers and Instagram stars, she has no physical presence. She's just a media construction, a collection of pixels. And to the beat of Hatsune's hologram, The young ravers of the city dance with explosive contortions as they invent a new choreography that distorts the silhouette and disguises the proportions of their frame so as to evade body detection algorithms that the city surveillance cameras use. And they do their makeup using the gloss black mirrors of their dead screens, and they reimagine their fashion cycles to follow the rate of Moore's law, the latest phone model or software update, rather than a change in natural season. And they wear new camouflage textiles that are designed to be invisible to the scanning technologies of the smart city. And their iridescent clothes reflect the light of CCTV laser scanners to create exuberant glitches and distortions in the dataset. And they hack the city, searching for the wilds beyond the machines. So we jump back in our car and we see the words "Hello City" blinking on the dashboard display. Our journey is at an end and the system is rebooting. A Hello World program is a super simple computer program that outputs Hello World onto a screen. It's the first words that are spoken to us by a new system. And Hello City burns onto the screen. It announces itself, telling us that everything is going to be just fine. But in many ways, what I want to talk about is this idea that City Everywhere never gave us this warning. We aren't sure how it got here, and we're certainly not going to let it leave because it's just too seductive, too shiny, and too easy. And hopefully from our tour today, we can see that our technologies, our buildings, our spaces are formed from a planetary scaled machine, an infrastructure so large that it has become invisible. A machine so often disguised, ignored, or forgotten behind the gloss of the screen, the seamless aluminium edge, or the glare of the pixel. Because in City Everywhere, ideology rarely evolves at the same pace as our technology. But perhaps if we can understand and map this continuous urban megastructure, then we can begin to reimagine it, to conjure new stories, new mythologies for this new kind of city. And my watch tells me about a coffee machine it just met, and the city wraps us in a warm embrace, and the LEDs blink, and the cooling fans spin, and the streets are lined with sensors.
In the future, everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better.
The electromagnetics hum, and it smells like it's going to rain.
In the future, everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better.
Our faces are bright in the rolling glow of a rectangular screen aurora.
In the future, everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better.
And in the future, everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better. And in the future, everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better.
In the future, everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better.
And in the future, everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better. Thank you.